Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes get the call for Team USA's Olympic orientation camp, but one other Maple Leaf got snubbed. We'll discuss that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morisuti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. What's happening, Dave? How are you feeling on a Wednesday?
Feeling pretty good, you know. I always have to remind myself, just like how far are we from the season coming back or the preseason starting?
Yeah, I mean, we're like a month away from training camp at this point, right? Like I think like 4-ish weeks until we're back in the saddle when it comes to full shows each and every day, Monday through Friday, talking about camp battles. What does that battle for the fourth line look like? That 13th forward spot, 12th forward spot. Is there going to be a trade at some point? That's all coming up very, very soon. But what comes before that, Dave, is the Olympic orientation camps. We saw Canada put out their roster for their orientation camp, which is taking place in a couple of weeks here. I think it's next weekend, actually, if I'm not mistaken. They put their list out a couple of weeks ago. The USA finally announced what their list will look like and the players that have been invited to their orientation camp today, or on Tuesday, rather. So we'll discuss what Maple Leafs made the list, the likelihood of them making the team, but also some surprises and camp snubs as well that were named to the list. So why don't we start locally here in Toronto? Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes were the only Maple Leafs that were nominated or that were invited to go to this event here and vie for an opportunity to play for the Americans at the Olympics in this upcoming Olympic Games. Matthews was on the team for the Four Nations. He was the captain for the Four Nations. Matthew Nyes has yet to play for Team USA in an Olympic event or in a major event, I suppose. Well, World Juniors. He was at the World Juniors as well for Team USA, I suppose. But what's the likelihood that there'll be multiple Maple Leafs on Team USA come February?
I like the chances. I mean, you look at the players that were invited. It's a tough team to make. But I feel like, you know, Matthews and Nyes are. You bring those names up and people will say, yeah, you know, definitely case for both of them to be on the team, you know, right off the hop. I mean, Matthews is a lock.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. He was already named to like the initial 6 roster or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, like I think he'll probably be captain again.
Well, I'll be curious to see. Like that's the only question when it comes to Austin Matthews. He's clearly going to make the team. He's going to be there if he's healthy, I suppose, which was a question mark last year going into the Four Nations. But yeah, I think that's the only question is whether or not they appoint him as captain again. I don't know. Like they probably do. Like, well, why bother ruffling feathers if they felt that he was captain material at the Four Nations a year ago? I doubt they go away from that. They clearly want him to be the face of USA hockey. So it would make sense to give him the captaincy again, and you know, he's done it before. I know they didn't win the championship at Four Nations, but you know, he's probably the best American player in the world right now, realistically. Like, you think about McDavid, Draisaitl, Makar, McKinnon. Those guys aren't Americans. Those are all Canadians and Europeans. So, you know, Austin Matthews is probably the best, most logical option when you're looking at someone to lead the Americans.
Yeah, I mean, there are some really good options, and you know, like, it's crazy because like the last time the Olympics were played, I expected the U.S. to be back, you know, when the NHLers were at the Olympics. I should emphasize, like, I expected the U.S. to be right back in the medal contention with Canada going for gold. I was kind of left disappointed, right? I remember TJ Oshie with that incredible shootout performance in those Olympics, and then I just obviously now like a lot of people like where USA is going in terms of like the talent that they have all across the board. And so yeah, it's a pretty solid list when you look at who was invited.
Yeah, well, let's throw the list up here. We've got the list of names that have all been invited to the Ford camp. It was 44 players in total, and like we mentioned, 2 of which members of your Toronto Maple Leafs in Austin Matthews and Matthew Knies. But look, it's a good collection of players. Like, you've got Jack Eichel, you've got Patrick Kane, who's been a staple, who wasn't at Four Nations, but will he make the Olympic team? I think it's interesting that Patrick Kane might have an opportunity here. Jack Hughes will be there. JT Miller, right? You're looking at some solid players. Jason Robertson, the Tkachuk brothers, obviously will be 2 guys who will be in the mix for sure. Funny enough, actually, look,
Matthew's not
he's not there. Matthew's not there, but it's because he's not healthy, right?
Yeah. He like we're expecting that he was supposed to have that procedure, or he was still debating if he was going to have that procedure for his injury from the playoffs. So don't think it'd be wise for him to be skating around with those questions.
He'll be there. He'll be on the team. I don't think anyone's worried about Matthew Tkachuk having to be there for the coaches to see him, to give him an opportunity to make the roster. If he's healthy, he'll be there in Milano in February. That's for sure. But I look at it though, like it's going to be tough for Matthew Knies. Like it's just a really good group of players, like Boldy and Gensel and Caulfield. I think Logan Cooley's a hell of a player. Kyle Connor, clearly a top-tier goal scorer in the NHL. Like Tage Thompson has proven that he can be a 40 to 50 goal scorer at the NHL level. Alex Tuck does a lot of similar things, that Matthew Knies does. Chris Kreider, who is, basically just an older version of what Matthew Knies would love to become. He's obviously going to be in the fold here for the Americans. So, when I look at Matthew Knies and his likelihood of making the team, I think it's almost a coin flip at this point. He's certainly going to have to get off to a really good start for the Maple Leafs this year in order to put himself in pole position to make the team and in one of these roster spots. But what I think certainly would help him is if him and Austin Matthews get off to an unbelievable start here at the beginning of the season, because in a short tournament like this, you don't have a whole lot of time to create chemistry. So if you have a line mate or a teammate at your NHL club that you play really well with, that is capable of being an Olympian, a la Knies and Matthews, you're more likely to kind of bring those two together as a team. Like we've seen that time and time again in the Olympics where they've done that. Like think back to what was it, that Sharks line from back of the day, Jumbo, Marlowe, and Heatley. They were there together, right? Kunitz came along